You know, when you're building a company, or even a country, there comes a point where you have to decide, are you going to keep playing by rules that were never written for your success? Or are you going to walk away and write your own? For years, India played by someone else's game. They accepted the deals, they followed the structure, they trusted the promises. But the more you grow, the more you start to see that not every handshake is equal, and not every deal is fair. In business, when the value you bring isn't respected, you walk away. You don't walk away out of anger, you walk away out of wisdom. Because continuing to engage in deals where one side always wins and the other keeps adjusting, it's not growth, it's surrender. And countries, just like people, reach a moment where they say, enough. India didn't walk away because it was weak. India walked away because it had grown strong enough to realize its worth. It looked at the trade tables and saw a pattern where profits flowed in one direction, where innovation was undervalued, and where compliance was expected but never mutual. So instead of playing the same old game, India chose to build a new one. And this isn't just about economics. This is about self-respect. This is about reclaiming negotiation from a position of strength. It's about looking the world in the eye and saying we're open for business, but not for exploitation. When your backbone becomes your principle, walking away isn't a loss, it's leadership. India realized that participation in unfair trade deals was limiting its long-term economic independence and innovation potential. For many years, India approached global trade with the mindset of cooperation, believing that integration into the world economy would accelerate development, bring in investment, and create new opportunities for growth. And for a time, this seemed to be the right path. Factories started booming, international brands poured in, and technology exchange began to take shape. But beneath the surface of this progress, something else was happening, something slower, more dangerous, and deeply structural. India was contributing its manpower, raw materials, and market access to global systems that, time and again, undervalued what it truly brought to the table. The country was exporting brilliance, but importing dependency. When you're inside the system, you don't always see the imbalance. You think it's just part of the process. Developing nations must go through these steps, accept some unfavorable terms, and eventually things will even out. But they don't. In many cases, these trade deals were crafted not for mutual growth, but to preserve existing power hierarchies. India would open up sectors, reduce tariffs, and flood its markets with imported goods, while its own industries struggled to gain similar access abroad. Domestic innovation was sidelined because it couldn't compete with subsidized imports. Young Indian entrepreneurs faced barriers in scaling their ideas globally, while foreign companies faced minimal restrictions coming in. This wasn't just about money, it was about mindset. Unfair trade deals conditioned Indian businesses to think small, to depend on external validation, and to rely on foreign markets for survival rather than building internal strength. Policies shaped by these agreements often prioritized short-term foreign investment over long-term capability building. The message was clear: follow the global system, even if it costs you your future autonomy. But that message began to wear thin. As India's technology sector began to rise, as its manufacturing capabilities sharpened, and as its youth population surged with talent and ambition, a contradiction became obvious. How can a country that launches satellites into space, still be locked into trade arrangements that treat it like a junior partner. The moment of reckoning did come overnight. It came in with small farmers squeezed by imported produce, local industries closing under pressure from cheap foreign goods, and tech startups struggling to survive in a regulatory framework skewed by external expectations. And then, India started to ask harder questions. Why should we continue participating in deals that reward us the least for our maximum contribution? Why are we still accepting clauses that others wouldn't dare to sign themselves? That awareness changed everything. India stopped seeing itself as a participant and began seeing itself as a builder. A builder doesn't wait for permission. A builder studies the terrain, assesses the blueprint, and lays down foundations based on vision, not convenience. India started reviewing every agreement with fresh eyes. Is this trade deal helping us become self-reliant or more dependent? Is it encouraging innovation at home or importing it from abroad? Are we exporting value or just resources? The answers weren't always easy to accept, but they were honest. Walking away wasn't just a policy decision, it was a philosophical shift. It signaled that India would no longer tie its destiny to deals that didn't recognize its evolution. It also meant re-evaluating the kind of growth it wanted. Growth at the cost of local entrepreneurship, at the expense of domestic manufacturing, and under the pressure of foreign terms. This was no longer acceptable. The world was told, respectfully but firmly, that India would not be another pawn in a global game where the rules benefit the few at the cost of the many. Because true development isn't measured by foreign direct investment alone, it's measured by resilience, self-worth, and the ability to lead without asking for approval. Walking away from these deals was a strategic move to reset global expectations and assert India's value on its own terms. There comes a moment when any rise in power has to define its identity, not through others' opinions, but through its own actions. And for India, that moment came when it recognized that global tables were not always built for fairness. They were built for predictability, for control, and often for imbalance. So India did what few expected. It stepped back not because it couldn't play the game, but because it was ready to change the game. This act of walking away was misinterpreted by many as isolationist or protectionist. But those who understood India's trajectory knew better. It wasn't withdrawal, it was recalibration. Every powerful nation in history has, at one point, redrawn its engagement rules with the world. The United States did it. China did it. And now India was doing the same. Not by rejecting globalization, but by demanding a version of it that was genuinely reciprocal. In negotiation rooms, India began to speak with a different voice, not defensive, not confrontational, but deeply confident. The kind of confidence that comes from knowing your own worth, your own history, and your own future. India made it clear, our market is valuable, our workforce is skilled, our consumers are conscious, and our innovation ecosystem is real. If you want access to this, you must come with respect, not with preconditions. This new posture did come without cost. When you walk away, you face short-term disruption. Some deals fall through. Some allies grow distant. The media speculates. But none of that compares to the cost of staying in a system that chips away at your sovereignty. India's move was not reactive, it was proactive. It was about setting the tone for the next 50 years, not just the next 5. It was about telling future generations, that compromise is not the only way forward. Sometimes courage is. And courage, in diplomacy, often means saying no louder than saying yes. This new direction also sent signals to the world. India will not be underestimated. It will engage, it will trade, it will invest, but only on terms that uplift all sides. That shift in posture started attracting new kinds of partners, those who respected India's firmness rather than feared it. Investors began to see India not as a cheap labor hub, but as a market of discernment and strategic intent. Nations started inviting India to the table not just to participate, but to co-create frameworks. The narrative began to change from India is growing to India is leading. Behind the strategic stance was a broader vision to become a nation that not only benefits from the global economy, but helps shape its future. Walking away from unfair trade deals allowed India to set a precedent for other emerging economies to show that dignity and diplomacy are not mutually exclusive. That development does not require surrender. That growth does not demand silence. And most of all, that value, whether in business or geopolitics, is not something you're given, it's something you declare.